Afghanistan, a country that has brought the world's greatest empires to their knees. The British suffered defeats in 3 Anglo-Afghan wars. The Soviet Union fought in vain in the Soviet-Afghan War, and the United States waged a protracted conflict from 2001 to 2021 that ultimately resulted in a dramatic retreat. These repeated failures have given Afghanistan the nickname "Graveyard of Empires" in international politics. Because after so many attempts, it seems impossible to conquer or occupy the country permanently. Even the mighty Alexander the Great failed to meet the challenges of Afghanistan, and it was one of the few territories from which he quickly withdrew. But why is this the case? What makes Afghanistan so difficult to conquer? Why did the most powerful empires cut their teeth on this country of all places? And what will this mean for the future of Afghanistan? We take a look at all these exciting questions in today's video. Have fun! To understand the invincibility of Afghanistan, we must first look at the historical lessons that the great powers have learned there. So let's take a closer look at the experiences of the 3 most important attempts at conquest, those of the British Empire, the Soviet Union, and the United States. The British Empire, the clear world power from the 19th century until the First World War, fought 3 wars in Afghanistan between 1839 and 1919. Driven by the desire to secure the region against Russian influence and to create a buffer state between British India and the Russian Empire. In the First Anglo-Afghan War, 1839 to 1842, in particular, they overestimated their military capabilities and considerably underestimated the strength of the local resistance. The British troops were confronted with an unexpected situation. Despite their superior equipment and training, they were unable to win over the loyalties of the Afghan tribes. The complex tribal structure and the deep aversion to foreign interference led to fierce resistance. In the end, the British were forced to retreat with heavy losses, which was a bitter blow not only militarily, but also for the prestige of the empire. More than a century later, the Soviet Union dared to attempt to control Afghanistan. The Soviet invasion of 1979 marked the beginning of an almost 10-year conflict that is often cited as one of the causes of the collapse of the USSR. Despite advanced military technology, the Soviets were unable to gain control over the rugged terrain and complex tribal structures of Afghan society. The Soviets were confronted with an enemy that consisted not only of local fighters, but was also supported by the USA and other nations. The Mujahideen put up fierce resistance, reinforced by covert international support. This combination of local resistance and global political interference made the Soviet campaign particularly difficult and costly. The United States had the most recent experience in Afghanistan. After the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, the U.S. intervention began as part of the War on Terror. While the initial military campaign quickly achieved its goals of dismantling al-Qaeda and driving out the Taliban, long-term efforts to build a stable government ran into significant obstacles. Despite enormous investments, more than for the reconstruction of Europe after the Second World War, the USA was unable to achieve lasting stability in Afghanistan. The resilience of the Taliban and ongoing internal conflicts underscored the difficulties of a foreign military presence in the region. The rapid collapse of the US-backed government after the withdrawal of American troops in 2021 clearly demonstrated the limits of external influence in Afghanistan. These repeated failures of the major powers in Afghanistan reveal a pattern. The combination of difficult terrain, complex social structures, and strong resistance to foreign rule makes the country an almost insurmountable challenge for any external power. But let's look at the factors in more detail. Why is Afghanistan's geography too unique? Because the country's natural landscape has proven to be an impregnable fortress for centuries and is a key element in its defense against invaders. Afghanistan is often referred to as the roof of the world, and not without reason. The country is home to some of the highest and most rugged mountain ranges in the world, including the Hindu Kush and the Pamir Mountains. These mountain ranges not only form a natural border, but also a complex maze of valleys, gorges, and passes that are extremely difficult for foreign armies to navigate. The strategic importance of these mountain ranges can hardly be overestimated. They offer countless hiding places and retreats for local fighters, while at the same time making the movement and supply of invading troops considerably more difficult. The narrow mountain passes become natural choke points that are easy to defend and difficult to overcome. Another aspect that makes Afghanistan's geography so challenging is the extreme weather conditions. The harsh winters in particular pose a serious threat to invaders. The freezing temperatures and harsh conditions can drastically reduce the effectiveness of foreign troops and their equipment. While the locals are adapted to these conditions, foreign armies often struggle with logistical problems and health challenges. Another key factor in Afghanistan's successful resistance is effective guerrilla tactics. The rugged terrain provides ideal conditions for local fighters to exploit their intimate knowledge of the terrain against technologically superior but foreign forces. These tactics have been developed and refined over generations. In addition to the mountains, Afghanistan's desert regions also play an important role in the country's defense. These barren landscapes offer little protection or resources for invading armies, while providing tactical advantages to local fighters who are familiar with the terrain. Another fascinating aspect of Afghan defense is the way the country's architecture has been adapted to the geographical conditions. Many villages and houses are built like fortresses, or so-called qalats. This type of construction strengthens the local population's defense capabilities against invading forces and turns every village into a potential fortress. Historically, the invaders have learned that while it is possible to gain initial control of Afghan territory, maintaining this control in the long term is virtually impossible. The Afghan resistance, strengthened by intimate knowledge of the country and the use of guerrilla tactics, has consistently outmaneuvered larger, conventional military forces. However, Afghan culture and society also make a lasting conquest extremely difficult. The complex social structures have proven to be just as resilient as the rugged landscape over the centuries. Afghan society is characterized by a multi-layered tribal structure that is often difficult for outsiders to understand. These tribes and clans form the backbone of social organization and play a central role in the resistance against invaders. Loyalty to these groups often exceeds ties to a central government or national identity, which in turn is also due to the geography. Clan relations are deeply rooted in Afghan culture and have a significant influence on the local distribution of power and decision-making. Historically, Afghans have often favored local rulers with broad popular support over leaders appointed from outside. This was clearly evident during the British and Soviet occupations. A remarkable characteristic of Afghan society is its adaptability to invaders. History shows that Afghan fighters have the will and ability to maintain their resistance for generations. In contrast, foreign invaders often lack this long-term commitment and understanding of local complexities. One expert aptly summarizes this situation. While it is possible to temporarily conquer territory in Afghanistan, it is practically impossible to control the region in the long term. Ultimately, then, the combination of rugged terrain, extreme weather conditions, and a complex tribal society has proved almost always insurmountable. Even technologically superior armies failed at the task of permanently controlling the land. These experiences underline the importance of cultural understanding in geopolitical conflicts. Experts emphasize that the only viable strategy for foreign powers is to accept local rulers, even if it means tolerating disagreeable groups to ensure stability. But after so many failures, no major power is likely to attempt a suicidal invasion of the country anytime soon. On the other hand, no lasting nationwide control is likely to be possible from within either. We can see this from the numerous splinter groups and problems of the Taliban, and so Afghanistan will probably continue to function differently from typical European and American nation-states in the future.